Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
But essentially, at the end of the day, you are putting in a list of to-do items into Asana, and it can be as easy as writing them on a to-do list. If you are a pen and paper to-do list person, you can stick to that format, and now you can access it on your desktop or the app on your phone and just always have your to-do list with you. Or like I said, you could choose to put it in the calendar view, or because you mentioned the visual Kanban, I call it like the Post-it view. If you like seeing things and moving them from one place to another, like, okay, it's in process, it's over here, you can also switch to that Kanban view, which they call boards in Asana. So to your point of earlier, your highlight of earlier, I can put that one task in one time, but then depending on the mood or the need that I have for the day, I can change the view with the click of a button. And that, to me, I needed that flexibility. Like, I love a good list. I love checking it off, but sometimes I need more than just that long list of items.
You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zarotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today we're exploring another task and project management platform called Asana. True confession time. Despite its popularity, Asana never caught on for me. As a matter of fact, if you listen to the episodes on the podcast about productivity platforms like ClickUp, Trello, and Airtable, I have probably mentioned this fact in each of those conversations. I promise I'm not trying to bash Asana. I'm just keeping it real when I share what works for me, anecdotally. At the time I tried it, which in fairness was years ago, it didn't appeal to me. However, as a productivity strategist, my job is to help you find the techniques and systems that fit you. What I like or use is irrelevant, ultimately. I can make suggestions and share what I like or use, but in the end, it's what works for you that is the best. And I'm here to support you in that search. That's what the point of this platform series of episodes is about. It's a way to explore what's out there so you can decide which one's best for you. Now, while the platform might not have been my favorite, the person I brought on as a guest expert to discuss it most certainly is. Kristen Lettini, owner and founder of Kristen Lettini, LLC, is an OBM, that's an online business manager, and she's the host of the Build Your Fairytale podcast. She helps simplify and streamline processes so small business owners can do more of what they love in a role that's self-described as fairy godmother. Can you tell she likes Disney? Yep. And her magic wands? Tools like 17 hats and Asana. I joined Kristen for her podcast to talk about how decluttering can help you build that fairy tale. And today, how the turntables as I quiz her about her preferred task management tool. Spoiler alert, I think she has me convinced to give Asana another try. I'm encouraged to think that there are so many good options out there to automate the processes we need for our business. It's up to you to decide. In addition to sharing lots of details on Asana features, recommended users, and the types of projects and tasks to consider, Kristen reminds us that we must get clear on our processes first and have a sense of what we need before choosing a platform like Asana. If that sounds familiar, I'm delighted. It means you've been listening because I always encourage you to do this. And if you've been working on it, but it's been slow going or you feel stuck, I invite you to book a productivity boost session. This is a special coaching session that I have made available again, where you'll get to experience what it's like to work with me, get clear on your next best steps, and get a boost of productivity to encourage and inspire. And it's only 30 minutes long. You can go to positivelyproductive.com/boost and be sure to use the promo code podcast for a very special listener discount. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast, Kristen Lettini. I am so delighted to return the favor after being on your podcast to have you here today.
Yes, Lisa, thank you. I am so excited to be here with you on your podcast now because like you said, you didn't use this word, but you were a fabulous guest on my show. And now I hope I can be half the guest on your show.
I know you will be, because the way that you approach things and you research things, your thoroughness is something I've always been impressed with, and that fits perfectly with today's topic. But before we dig into it, please tell us a bit about who you are and who you help. And my favorite part of this question, what makes you light up?
Yes, Lisa, I'm ready. At least I think I'm ready. As you mentioned, my name is Kristen Lettini. I am the owner of Kristen Lettini, LLC. It's a very original name, I know. But what I have been diving headfirst into is the world of online business management, just really this past year, because for the 13 years prior to that, after I earned my MBA, I spent 13 years in corporate America working for a global, really well-respected company across procurement, marketing, and communications. That's like a whole nother story. So I switched from those functions. But I decided after 13 years with that company that it was time to take a step back, take a time out, try things on my own. It felt like a now or never moment. And I was fortunate enough to have a husband, a spouse who can keep things afloat, right? Financially, we could take that risk. But, you know, at the time I was making more than him. So it was still a discussion. It was still something to be considered. But I know that's a fortunate opportunity that not everyone has. So I just need to preface that. But I did take the leap. I left my corporate salary. I left my steady job to do things on my own. And that is really what I'm all about, is trying to build my own fairy tale. For me, that's taking the experience that I've had in corporate America and combining it with my passion for, at this base level, organizing, and putting it together to help other small business owners organize everything that can quickly become chaotic in the back end of a business. So if you're a florist, a photographer, you likely didn't start a business to play in spreadsheets all day or send customer invoices, right? Like, I don't think anybody starts a business with those details in mind. But to me, that is sort of like this puzzle and place to organize and play that I really love and get excited by. You and I have talked about puzzles before. So I look at small businesses as sort of these interactive jigsaw puzzles where I can look and find pieces and sort of clean them up, organize them, and then hand them back to the business owner to say, look at what we made together. Now go and bring your talents, into the world. So that's why I'm super excited. We're going to talk about one of the tools that I use every day, Asana, today.
I love that. That's a lovely segue, but I do want to add that the other part that I love, and you kind of hinted at it because this is your podcast, the build your own fairy tale idea here. That's a very brave thing, regardless of, what your circumstances are and how grateful you are for them. It's taking a leap and it's taking a chance. And I think that's something that you have really gone out of your way to inspire in others. And I was thinking about that and what is it that we need to make that leap, I guess, more possible or more realistic. And it's my own bias, but it really is being organized and productive and getting our stuff together. And yeah, you're right. With the puzzles, that's what it is. I think of my podcast as a puzzle all the time. Where am I putting guests and where am I putting solo episodes and what are we focusing on each month and things like that. There's a puzzle to be had with my clients in a very parallel way where we talk about the puzzle of their lives and creating harmony with, a family life and personal time and business time and how all the things intersect. When someone like you comes in and says, hey, let me help with your business puzzle and streamline it, oh man, that opens up so much space that they can then shift over and use for those things that they love, like time with family or time alone for my introverts,
Yes.
whatever it happens to be. There's so much goodness in that. And so to that point, we have many tools that can help us. And as we talked about with Layla Pomper on the podcast, it does start with the process of it, and I'm sure that you will touch upon that. But one of those tools, drumroll please, is Asana. And let's just call out the elephant in the room. I've always been afraid of it. I've run away from Asana, and it is time. It is time to talk about Asana. We've talked about Trello. We've talked about ClickUp. We've talked about Airtable. I'm like, who else can we talk about? No, in all seriousness, I know that Asana is very popular. And when I first jumped in and took a look at it, as I have with practically every platform out there, I did run away from it. It wasn't my preferred platform, but it could be because I don't know enough about it and I can't think of anybody better to talk about it than you. So my first question is, how did you get into Asana?
Thank you, because I feel very special that you trust me to go into this scary world of Asana. And I do want to know, what was so scary to you?
I think it had more to do with the fact that it felt just like a lot of lists, a lot of words, which is ironic because I love words and things like that. But it felt like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How am I organizing this? It felt like a lot. And that could have been a time in my life when I was, because this was a while back. So if I looked at it again today, I might see it differently. But I wanted to wait and have this conversation with you and see what you had to say so that I could go take a look at it with fresh eyes.
All right, I'm in for it. I'm hoping that you'll maybe just not hate it as much.
Oh no, this is not about hate. This is more about, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that. And sometimes you have to choose between, do you want to use something that you're comfortable with because that makes sense and it matches your brain? Or do you want to challenge yourself? And the reason you're uncomfortable is because your processes are off. And that's a fair question. I will also add, if this helps, that I've tended more toward the visuals, like a Kanban style board, which is why I'm an OG fan of Trello. Mm-hmm. And I like that aspect and that manipulation aspect that you can find in ClickUp. So that's why those are my preferences. But no, all the love for Asana, because I know you're going to show us how it works and who it works for.
Yes. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. Like I said, I spent 13 years in corporate America, and I struggled, as organized as I love to be, I still struggled every day with, okay, you're in a meeting and you get a new assignment, and then you get an email and you get another new assignment. And it was hard to always track, which assignment is happening, what's due when, and, how to prioritize, because there was a lot of moving pieces, just like in whether you're a small business or a big business, I think there are multiple moving pieces. So in my last year of corporate, I did discover I was using Airtable and I was using Microsoft Planner, because everything was connected to Microsoft. And so I had discovered tools through them that I was like, oh, this is cool. I could put something in a list, but I could also see it on a calendar. And to me, that notion of being able to put the data in once, but, sort of see it slice and dice in a couple different ways was really attractive. So when I left corporate and was on my own and said, okay, well, my first big project was starting this podcast, or my podcast. From having a podcast, that each episode has its own list of, I don't know, at least 20 steps, if not more. And even just now that all the other pieces of my puzzle were taken away, right? I got rid of the corporate to-dos, and now I just, air quotes, just had the podcast. I still found myself sitting down going, what do I need to do today? Like, do I need to work on Lisa's episode? What about the next episode? Like, and I need to plan out 3 months in advance. Like, it still just felt very overwhelming. And to someone who loves and thrives on organization and that clear space, I was like, this is insanity. I can't do this. I know that there's tools that can sort of take it in one way and help me visualize it in another. I need to find a tool that works for me. And now I don't have Microsoft anymore. I'm on now Gmail and things. And Airtable didn't have a free version. So I set out looking for, at least at the time when I was looking, I couldn't find a way to use Airtable for free. No, you got to fact check that one. So I set out looking like, what's a good task management software that I can use? And hey, I'm just starting out here. I just gave up my salary, so I would like to keep it free. So I did some initial searching, and some other content creators that I know and like and follow were using Asana. So I did just a very cursory, like you mentioned the research thing up front. I did do a little research. I watched some YouTube videos comparing Asana to some other things. But ultimately it was, you know what, this one's here, it's free, let me give it a try, because I feel like I can do all the research in the world, but until you try it and match it up with your process and the way you work, you're not going to know if it's perfect for you. But it was the first one that I really dove into, and then I stayed there because it worked. So that is how I got to Asana.
I love that. So some really important highlights here. Free version. Love that for us.
Yes.
Because
yes.
seriously, as you are going through the trial and error, now when I work with clients, I can help reduce the number of choices in the trial and error, but you're absolutely right. There's still a point where you have to go in, play with it, and see how it feels. Does this feel right or doesn't it? Or is it something I could try a little bit, give it some time, and having a free version to do that is really amazing. The way you described putting data in and seeing it differently.
Yes.
I really appreciate that because sometimes we do need to manipulate it in a way where we can come at it from a different angle, depending upon whether we're just trying to get certain tasks done or we're trying to troubleshoot. So those all sound very beneficial. So you've already started to describe what Asana is and what it does, but go ahead and give me the official spiel, right? Of what is Asana? Is it task or project management? Do you call it both? I tend to call it both. What does it do for us?
Yes. So I also tend to call it both. I want to say the official description is task management software, but don't quote me on that. But I call it both project and task management. Yeah, I was debating how to best describe this, Lisa, because we're not looking at the Asana screen. But essentially, I think about the way Asana organizes is a good visual is a filing cabinet, right? If you join Asana, you now have your filing cabinet, which is called a team. And you can have multiple filing cabinets or multiple teams. And within those filing cabinets, traditionally, you'd have those sort of hanging folders with folders in them, right? So each folder in your filing cabinet is a project. And then within your folder, you're going to have papers or notebooks or things that are associated with that project. And in Asana, we call them tasks or even subtasks. You might have a task within a task. So that is sort of the visual hierarchy I like to give with how you can organize within Asana. Once you have a handle on that hierarchy, then I also, before I'm going to say to anybody, go in and put your tasks in Asana, right? You're going to like this part because I want to think about the process and what is the process behind each of your projects, because each of them may be different. I know for a podcast, I have more of a checklist sort of workflow than with my social media planning. I want to see more on a calendar of like, okay, today I'm going to post a reel. Tomorrow is going to be a story. To me, I sort of think about the process differently when I'm planning for a podcast versus social media versus any of the other 10 types of projects I might have on my list, right? So I think about that. That's going to help me figure out how I want to set it up in Asana. But essentially, at the end of the day, you are putting in a list of to-do items into Asana, and it can be as easy as writing them on a to-do list. If you are a pen and paper to-do list person, you can stick to that format, and now you can access it on your desktop or the app on your phone and just always have your to-do list with you. Or like I said, you could choose to put it in the calendar view. Or because you mentioned the visual Kanban, I call it like the Post-it view. If you like seeing things and moving them from one place to another, like, okay, it's in process, it's over here, you can also switch to that Kanban view, which they call boards in Asana. So to your point of earlier, your highlight of earlier, I can put that one task in one time, but then depending on the mood or the need that I have for the day, I can change the view with the click of a button. And that to me, I needed that flexibility. Like, I love a good list. I love checking it off, but sometimes I need more than just that long list of items.
Yeah. And so you've got this putting it in once, which I absolutely love. To me, there's nothing more productive than saying, hey, you've had to do this thing or move this thing or add this thing once, and then you can move it where you need it, manipulate it, see it in a different way. So with that, it actually sounds very similar to so many other platforms now. And I wonder if they're all kind of incorporating these different features and if things have changed. Because I also know that ClickUp tends to have quite a bit of this hybrid activity too, your calendar view. And when I say, yes, Kanban, thank you very much for using the Post-it description. That is perfect. That idea of, when you have columns and you get to shift things around. For me, I love that visualization when it comes to stages of a project versus like a list of to-dos that I just have to like bang out for a day. So yeah, depending upon what you have going on or that process that you were talking about, you can make those adjustments. So that sounds very similar with just Asana in mind, but it could now apply to any other platform that has these features. Who would you say this is for?
My first instinct, my gut reaction is this is for someone who has multiple to-do lists and is tired of not knowing which list to look at or where they put said list or which list to look at first, because that is where I found myself, where I've seen others struggle in to-do list making, right? We all love a good list, or a lot of us love a good list. So that is the first place I would say to start, or who could start with Asana. But then I feel like that's the gateway, because then once you're in, you find that there are other aspects that can enhance your project management. So another thing that I love about it is that you have multiple projects, right? And you might look at one project as a calendar, one project as a to-do list, one project as a board or a Kanban board. But at the end of the day, once I've zoomed into each project and made sure all the tasks are assigned to me or whoever on the team is needed, and they all have a due date, now I can zoom out. And there's a little button in the top left of Asana that says My Tasks. And I can click on it, and it's going to tell me everything I have on the list for today. And by the way, it can be color-coded, if I'm going to totally nerd out here. If you've color-coded, if you've given a color to each of your projects, those colors are going to carry through. So on the one little click of My Tasks, it's going to pull together everything from all the projects across my workspace and tell me, okay, these are the 5 things you have on the list to do today to stay on track. I can also look in that space to say, ooh, Friday looks like a doozy. I've got like a lot of things on the list and there's no way I can get all of them done. I'm going to have to move them. Let me proactively look ahead, or even, hey, it's Friday now. I've got to be proactive. I'm not going to get it done today. I can shift things around with just like clicking and dragging on the calendar or clicking in and re-looking at that project list. So for me, yes, it has those features and I can switch within a project, but the ability to pull all of them together with the click of a button, that was the major selling point for me.
Color coding, it's like you know me.
I thought you might like that one.
I do appreciate that. But let's back up a little bit to the idea of multiple to-do lists. I love that you started off with that one, because guess who that connects to? Multi-passionates.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. When you have multiple projects, multiple ideas, lots and lots of it could be businesses, it could be side hustles, it could be hobbies, it could, whatever it is, you can keep track of multiple things in different ways. The other thing, and I know this because I know folks who use Asana and use it very successfully. I'm going to give a fun shout out to someone I haven't mentioned in a while. Ruby Ringo from Pirate Ringo's Salsa. Oh my gosh, look it up. So good. If you like salsa, this stuff will blow your mind. And I remember when I consulted with her and she was looking for a platform to use. And because she's a product-based service and she has a team working with her, Asana was the better fit. So I'm curious what you think about that.
Yes. Ooh, this is a good one. I very much started this as a solopreneur, right? It's really just me over here in my little business. But it was really created with teams in mind and to enhance that collaboration, increase the productivity. And again, coming from the corporate world, the days were filled of meetings and emails, right? And now what Asana is really created to do is it's supposed to decrease the amount of emails and texts and meetings that are happening outside, because with the click of a button, I can, go to the task that says Kristen to create this slide deck or whatever has been assigned to me and put in the update or put in, here's the file, take a look. I can tag @Lisa so you'll get alerted, or tag the team or tag it to another project that somebody's waiting for so they can see exactly where it's at. Everything is connected and in one spot. So even now I'm working, like one of my clients is a florist, and every time there's a client booked or a wedding booked, there's a templated to-do list that says, okay, for weddings, we've got the pre-event. Here are all the items we need to do. We have to order the flowers. There's the day of with the setup. There's post-event. And the 3 or 4, whoever's working on that wedding, can be talking to each other in the system versus I send a text, hey, are you available to take this wedding and do it this day? If I ask you in Asana, you're going to see everything there already is connected to that wedding, that event. Okay, they want lilies on this date and, next year, are you available? It's a Saturday at noon. Like everything's in one spot and you can talk back and forth there. You can add the files. It also integrates with other apps. Trying to think of, there's too many to mention, but big ones like the G Suite.
It plays well with others, right?
Yes. Ooh, I like that. It plays well with others. Summary done.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. We can definitely, I'm sure when you hop on to the Asana site and you check it out, they'll list like the various integrations. So, and I think anymore now, all of them have to step up their game in terms of integrations and in terms of flexibility, manipulating data, that kind of thing. So it's really interesting to me. It sounds like the Asana that you're describing now is different from what I originally experienced. And it sounds very familiar. So this is encouraging because if you are looking right now to find the platform that works for you, there are going to be multiple options that may work really well. And then you can decide where you feel most at home because they all kind of have their own interface about them.
Yeah.
Now, along those lines, and this kind of goes into the question of, okay, we know who it's best for. We know that it's really fantastic if you have any kind of, teamwork, especially teamwork where things might shift and change or things might be assigned. That's phenomenal. And would you confirm that if you are in fact a solo entrepreneur or maybe micro, and then you're once in a while doing projects with others, that it still works well?
Absolutely. Like I said, started this as just me. And today I have my editor for the podcast who's also in there with me. I get 9 of the tasks. She gets the one where I'm like, hey, this one's ready to edit. So it's very much, you can use it just for yourself and you can use it for a team. I look at it as it can grow with me as I grow my business.
Okay, I really like that. And so I will say this, that in using ClickUp, which again, they sound rather similar, my first impression of that was that it was maybe a little bit more under the engine than I needed. I'm like, holy Ferrari, Batman, I just need to tootle around town with a Honda. Like, do I need this as a solo entrepreneur? So the idea of having something that can really work when it's just you and grow with you is definitely positive. Now, in keeping things real and not because of a bias, because again, I'm here completely open and honestly, you are starting to convert me, I got to admit. But would you say there's anyone that maybe this is not quite right for, or you might caution them just in terms of the interface or if they have a preference? Is there anything that you can think of along those lines, just to help us understand if it is right for us?
Yes. So I can't speak directly to ClickUp because I've never played in it, but I can speak to Trello. I've played in Trello and I looked at it briefly when I started because I knew it. But Trello at the time, again, maybe it's grown as well. It was too much of the same. It was always that visual format for me. And I wanted to be able to go between formats. So that is why I wouldn't use it. But if I always had the same format, Trello could work. A lot of people keep lists in Excel. You might start there. And that to me, you lose the collaboration if you do have other people to talk with or update in real time, attach things to, and it's just not pretty. You can color code and do some formatting there, but it wasn't pretty enough for me. And it was too overwhelming with like just the spreadsheety list type of thing. So those are the two that I can really speak to. Again, I use Microsoft Planner briefly. I don't remember having the full-on calendar ability. I was able to sort like today, tomorrow, next month, sort of timeline when things were due. And then Airtable was the first one that I discovered that really had both the list and the calendar view. So those seem similar. But again, I couldn't find a year plus ago when I was looking to start a free version to get myself started in Airtable.
I feel like that's really more database heavy. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing to work with, but it's just a slightly different variation on the theme. And we did have Melissa Guller on the podcast talking about that. So she can describe, you can go listen to that episode and hear about Airtable. But I agree that had some good manipulation of the data. And it sounds like Asana has really picked up on this. So it sounds that like maybe, and this may have been what had happened with me, that if you really prefer that visual in terms of the Kanban and starting with that, and then maybe once in a while looking at another format, then maybe Asana is not quite the right pick, but it sounds like it's flexible enough that it's worth a try.
Yeah, and that's what I had planned to underscore this. So let me do it now. But when you say, who is it right for? I think it could be like, you're just starting to dabble. You're not ready for all the bells and whistles, right? You'll know that they are there. If and when you need them, you can upgrade to premium. It's like $11 a month or something, and you can get even more. But if you're just tired of having more than one list and you want to improve your productivity because you're like, oh, I'm spending too much time just figuring out what I need to do today, this is something that could solve it. I'd say it's not for you if you're not willing to try technology, because it is, after all, technology. You're going to need to, it's only going to be as good as the data you put in. So if you're not willing to put it in and check things off and move things around, it's not going to work. It's just not magic like that. But if you're willing to give it a try, I mean, I really only use it on the desktop. I do have the app on my phone. I use it to reference if I'm on the go. I say, oh, I have something going on that day. But for the most part, I'm sitting down to do my work and I use the desktop. But there is an app as well, so you do have it on the go if you'd like it.
Those are excellent points. And the one that is obvious but really important is, if technology is really not your thing, or you want the simplest, or you don't have maybe that many to-do lists in the way that you're, working your projects, then you might go with something even simpler, a task list that you can even find in Google, for example. So that's something to consider as well. And in terms of the data, are you putting it in the same way, or can you put it in via the view that you prefer?
You can put it in via the view that you prefer, which is another thing that I love, right? If I'm working in a kind of Excel spreadsheet, just pure on lists, right?
Mm-hmm.
One row gets this, the next row gets this. I can do that. If I'm looking at the calendar, oh yeah, next week would be a good time to talk about X, Y, and Z. I throw it on the calendar. So you can do it wherever you are. The other feature I will mention is it's called multi-homing. I just learned that term. I feel very professional. For a visual, I think of, and I'm not the chief music officer in my house. My husband is. He makes all the playlists. But the visual I think of is like, you have a song in your iTunes library and you want to put it on today's playlist. But you also might want that same song on a playlist for your party next weekend, right? But I only have the song in once. Similarly, I might have a task in Asana for today's project, but it's also related to another project. So I can multi-home or tag it to both projects. And then once it's done, I check it off once. It shows up completed on both lists. And so both projects have that piece of information.
Okay, that's really cool. I like that a lot. It's kind of like the idea of when you have shortcuts in a folder, except that it relates to tasks, so that when you click it off, it is saying everywhere that it was pointing to, we're done with this. We're good to go.
Yep.
Okay.
And then one other thing I thought of to mention, once you do have a team working on there, and if you're assigning projects to a team, you can easily click on someone's name or even your own name to see, this person has a lot going on. Maybe I should assign this to somebody else. So it can also help with workload management.
And that could also include the me tasks, right? When you
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. That's really important when it comes to distribution of the workload, because I absolutely know about hitting a day where I was like, what was past Lisa thinking future Lisa was going to be doing this Thursday? Like,
right.
how did I manage that? I think we're going to have to change some due dates. Okay. I love that. Those are excellent features. I wanted to clarify how the data comes in. And then one more thing about data, and you know this because I've asked it before, but in terms of either privacy and or saving the data so that we don't lose it, do you know how Asana works with regard to that?
So I do know Asana is very transparent. If there's ever an update or an outage, they're very proactive in sharing that communication with their users from their website. They adhere to all global privacy laws and security standards, right? So they're being compliant. There is a 20+ white page paper out there if anyone is interested on reading the details of their privacy and security information or how they manage that. So again, to their transparency effort, they have that out there. That is not my area of expertise. I had no interest in reading that paper.
That's awesome. No, as long as they're trying to play by the rules, they're being transparent. Again, that's consistent with the other platforms that are out there. And are you able to download or save data from Asana?
Yes, I have personally downloaded as a CSV file. I've also taken other like Excel CSV files and uploaded into Asana. So I know you can play with that CSV download, import, export.
Excellent. I love that because every once in a while, or actually I should just say on a regular basis, though it doesn't necessarily have to be frequent, just consistent, it's a good idea to back up your data in whatever way that you can. And I am curious if that's something where if you back up that data, could you re-upload it if something happened?
It's definitely a good start. And if you download it as a CSV, you can totally re-upload it if something were to happen, or if you just want to recreate.
Fantastic. Okay, with that in mind, that's a great place for us to wrap up. And I know that you described earlier the idea of understanding your process first and then starting to input some data and play with Asana. Any other thoughts or maybe the next best step for us if we're like, yeah, you know what? I think I am ready. I'm ready to try again, Kristen. What do I do? What would you recommend?
So two basic things. One, I didn't touch on when you're talking or thinking through the process, the type of project you have, because I feel like the ones we're speaking about are typically time bound, right? You got a deadline, you know, something's going to happen at this date and you need to get these steps done. So that's your core. There's 3 buckets. That's where I feel like a lot of them fall in. Then I feel like you have your recurring or ongoing processes, whether that's for an email newsletter, a monthly meeting with your boss, or anything, you know, it's just like a cyclical. You're going to get through the one meeting and the next one's going to happen again. So you're just going to go through that same ongoing checklist. So there's those types of projects. And then there's a third one that I feel like is more of this reference. I call it my headquarters in Asana. It's sort of a repository where, to your point earlier about this parking lot of ideas, I think of something, oh, that's really cool. I definitely don't have time to do it today, but let me put it in my headquarters area where I save future business ideas, right? So when I have that time dedicated to, or when I make that time dedicated to, okay, let me work about the business or big picture strategy here, I've got this list of ideas I've already been saving. It's kind of like a Pinterest board, if you will. I use that repository for references, resources, ideas. And so those are the 3 sort of types of projects that I think about when I'm thinking through the process and what I would like Asana to do for me. The other nuance I would say if you're going to get started with it is definitely to try to use a custom domain email. So if you've got your @KristenLettini.com email versus @Gmail, it would be a preference to use your business email or your custom domain email because it just gives you that added layer of organization within Asana. It gives you the ability to create those teams or those filing cabinets. Versus if you use Gmail, it's going to start you at the project level. So you get an extra layer when you use the custom domain email.
Ooh, okay. That's important. Okay. So it sounds like for our very next step, if we maybe pick a kind of project that jumps out at us that you described, time-bound, cyclical, or maybe even just the idea of starting with the reference part of it, because I know we have, we want a safe space to keep stuff.
Yes.
And I highly recommend, especially for multi-passionates, that we make good use of what we sometimes call the back burner, right? Where it's like, okay, I don't want to forget this. This is important. I probably want to do it. I think I want to do it. I don't know. But I can't help but come up with these ideas and I love them and I want to honor them and process them sufficiently. So back burner is good. You can definitely use that. And then maybe just something in there for regular meetings that you're having or something like that. I mean, that sounds like a great place to start to keep track and keep it out of your head, which is the most important thing.
Yes, make that space, open it up.
Love that. Okay. I think we are ready to shift into the rapid wrap up. But before we do that, please tell us where we can find you online.
Yes, so you can find me at KristenLettini.com. So you can find both how to work with me or find the podcast there. And then on social media, I am most active over on Instagram at Kristen.Lettini.
Okay, we'll definitely have those in the show notes. I'll also have the episode that I was on your podcast in the show notes as well. So definitely take a listen to that. And without further ado, let's wrap it up with you filling in the blanks for me, please. A song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance is on that playlist that your hubby takes care of.
So I'm an overachiever, Lisa. Okay. If I'm at a wedding, I'll be on the dance floor either way. But if I'm taking a break, if I'm in the restroom, what's going to get me back on that dance floor is Shout or Run Around Sue. But I know they're kind of classics. But if I am in a like, I need to be inspired or lifted up, or like I'm down because being an entrepreneur is hard, man. You're in your head all the time. Like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing it right. If I need the uplifting there, I'm going to go with anything on the soundtrack from Amazon Prime's Cinderella 2021. I've mentioned it a couple times on my podcast because it's one of my favorites. But any song from that, they took a bunch of old songs and made them new. And they gave Cinderella like this really, she's going to go make it happen. She doesn't really need the prince type thing. And if I had to pick one, it would be Million to One. The odds are against her, but if the odds are 1,000,000 to 1, she's going to be the one to make it. And that lifts me up every time.
I love that. I think that might be my pick of all the options you offered that I can pop onto the Positively Living Podcast Spotify dance playlist. It might be volume 3. We might be getting to volume 4 at this time. Stay tuned. Check it out. Okay, now a quote or a mantra, something that inspires me or I love to share.
You know, I always go back to Disney, Pixar type of movies here, and I have to say it's Just Keep Swimming. It's Nemo, Dory.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Yes.
Yeah, because again, you get in your head of like, okay, this isn't working, but just keep going. Just take that next step. Keep moving forward. You'll get there.
Keep trying. Resilience is the name of the game. Okay, how about a resource? It could be a book, an app, you name it, other than Asana, of course, that has made my life better.
Okay, so if we're going in the tech app world, I'm going to go with 17 Hats, Customer Relationship Management. But if you've had enough of tech and app talk today, I will say a book that I have really enjoyed and I've gone back to over and over again is Tanya Dalton's On Purpose. And I don't know why, it just helps me, again, get clarity, think about what really is my purpose, what I want to be doing with my time and my life so that I can be happy and fulfilled. And that is a book that I would recommend.
Oh, love that. Okay, I'll make sure to put that on the favorites page of my website, along with other recommended books from the podcast. And now last, but most certainly not least, what are you grateful for today, Kristen?
I think I'm grateful most for, on this entrepreneurial journey, is having made friends with people like you, Lisa, because I've gotten to meet just some really cool, passionate, welcoming people who are willing to teach you what they know and take you along for the ride and then become your friends over this time, right? And in the world of online business, that's like, I think, a really huge thing. So I'm grateful for you and all my other online friends in this entrepreneurial journey. I can't say that word today.
It's a tough word to say and a tough thing to do, but you know what? Those we surround ourselves with certainly make this journey better. And I count you among them. I'm definitely grateful for you, that we connected, that we could collaborate again. And so I want to thank you, Kristen, for shining your light so bright in this world and sharing it with us today.
Oh, well, thank you for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.